Hi, Hussam.
Hey, Sarmad, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for doing this. I'm so excited. Uh,
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
so I just want to say something about you first. Hussam Dr. Casey. Should I say it in Arabic or English?
It's up to you. I go by Casey or AlKaissi. That's
Oh, okay. So that's very American. Hussam
uh,
Casey.
as a matter of fact, it is.
Yeah, actually, I have a friend. It's Casey. His name is Casey. So Hussam AlKaissi, and he's a Fulbright scholar, an MD, and musician, and a writer. I think you are a writer without knowing, but
I'm
I
not
think
sure if I agree yet,
you
but
know about this. So Hussam is joining me today, and then we're gonna talk about different topics: his education and music, and his life in New York, life in Iraq. So actually, I'm just gonna go ahead and start with. I thank you for sending your writing.
oh,
I really enjoyed reading it, and I love the contrariety in your writing. And I think there is a good platform for this. I was thinking about it before we started. I think. Have you heard about Medium?
uh, is that a platform?
Yeah, it's a platform. It's like for bloggers. So you write
Mm-hmm.
blogs, and this is like perfect. The writing that you did, it's perfect for that medium, like that platform. And actually, you can get paid from it. Like people go read it, and you get paid for it. Like whoever
Mm,
read it, you can get paid as you, and then you have like so many people follow you. It's like a social media, but it's like blogging. And
that's interesting. No, I
especially
never heard of it actually.
yeah, especially for people who loves reading. It's a really good platform, and you can make money and also read other people's material. It's for amateurs, professionals, and public figures. They all write on that medium. I was told about this actually by one of my close friends. I thought about doing it, but I haven't started it. But maybe one day.
I will take a look actually. Medium.
Yeah, but the
I'll,
right
I'll keep I'll keep that in mind.
yeah, the piece that you wrote, the first one that I read, like I think would be perfect for Medium. I mean, I'm not paid or anyone. This is not an ad for Medium.
Oh,
I just like the idea, and I was a couple times I went and read some blogs about different topics, and you can make it short or long. It's up to you.
hmm
It's a really
hmm
to check. Like it's really worth it.
So that is something I was thinking about is it's you know the way most of physicians or scientists nowadays are focused on academic publication, and that's definitely something always on the back of my mind as well, and I work on it continuously. But there are certain instances and encounters where they do not really fit into any academic form, even though most of the scientific journals and medical literature now they do include um, section on humanities, section on poetry, section on patient perspective, but they are still I wouldn't say primitive, but very succinct and short. So I just decided there are things that I want to talk about, or at least to document for myself. So I started journaling.
Yeah, yeah.
These are things that are interesting, but not academically, but from just being alive and part of these people's lives, being affected and affecting them as well.
Yeah. I just wanted you to talk more about the style and what are you writing about so people will know. Hopefully one day you decide to publish it, not sharing it with just me. uh,
I
yeah, I mean you can just
I think I would consider that once I run out of ideas to publish in an academic based literature, or if I change my mind, it's definitely a good um, change of forms, definitely. But I'm still very reluctant and not sure about it. I mean, I'm very glad that you went through it, and thank you very much. It's basically, so people still don't know what we're talking about. What I sense, Sarmad, is so as I was mentioning, you see, being a physician is a very, very, very privileged position where people are letting you into their lives at times of distress and difficulty. And as much as you try to be objective and focusing on the medicine, you become part of their lives for this brief period of time that you are in contact with, whether that's in a clinic for a few, like 1 or 2 hours, or that's in hospital for 1 or 2 weeks. And sometimes you get to see a part of patients that, as one of my friends and co-authors, he also read them, and he always say, you bring, you humanize clinical conditions, because I do write about the disease, I do write about the pathology, but not from pathological point of view. You know, medicine has passed through 2 phases. The first phase we all know about is the disease centered module where physicians are treating diseases and pathologies, and now into a patient-centered module where you treat a human, and the human happen to have a disease or condition, and this more holistic approach has been cashed into yet in scientific writing. It's still, even I find it sometimes funny in trials and studies, they still refer to us humans as subjects, which is fine. But it's very, very, very dry, I would say.
I think now they're research, they're moving toward using a participant instead of subject. So it's just like to give it more, more.
Well, yeah, it's. I mean, some people may do find this very trivial, but the thing is that we are not the most perfect in thinking, because we don't think in an abstract way. We think in language, okay, and language, according to some linguistics or linguisticians, language do shape our thinking process. So sometimes changing certain phrasing and wordings and vocabulary will change how we react to situations and people versus subjects. So what I do write about people. I do write about these interesting sometimes encounters. And one in particular, which we are talking about, is, well, basically 2 scenarios, 2 individuals with very different health backgrounds, very different diseases, but they both happen to have 2 different forms of hallucinations and delusions. One was very pleasant, and in the form of songs and music, and they were telling me they were enjoying the music, and I still remember the first time I noticed this is part of the symptom, like part of the syndrome I was dealing with, is the patient asking, "Oh, you finally decided to play some elevator music in the hospital. That's a nice move." I said, "Not quite sure I can hear that, and I think we are dealing with something." And soon after, so as the recovery goes on, in about 5 days, the music starts to go fainter and fainter, and finally, like, the patient would be humming along with some of his favorite rock stars, singing in his head, until it's totally gone by the 5th day. He was sad about that, but we were very relieved as we witnessed some improvement in his metabolic status. While the other one was the exact opposite. they were admitted for an entirely different situation, and they happened to have a form of false belief that they were poor, and they had to pay for every single service that they were provided, even though they didn't have to. And the patient was in distress for days about that, and just the idea that how our mind can create literally what I call it heaven and hell
Yeah,
within, inside.
I was like,
And it
sorry.
mhm.
When I started reading, I was like, why he called it hell, heaven and hell? I was like, what's going on? What am I reading? And then it was like, it all made sense.
Yes, because there were no external factors, at least not in the sense that were influencing the way those two patients were thinking. It's just their possibly their collective personal experience, life experience, background that culminated into having this form of beliefs or made up sounds in the head, and one of them happened to be very pleasant and one not very pleasant, and the realization that happiness or the lack thereof can lie within, and this may sound controversial, but it's not, because they were not able to control the form of the false belief or the hallucination they had. They were involuntarily pleasant or unpleasant, but it's still within.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I loved reading it. If it was published, I would definitely read this.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll keep. I'm still writing. I'll share more with you, and I should share it with the patient themselves, because in academic writing I do keep them in the loop, and they know what I'm writing. So I'm considering treating it just as treating any academic publishing, where there is a formal consent, and they agree with us, and of course there weren't any identifiers to begin with. That's for a start, but let's still, if we do it, we will do it the right way.
Yeah, I didn't see any. I think you should be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I made sure that it was as vague, but still describing a condition.
So, Hussam, how long you been in New York?
2 years and 4 months.
Before residency, what did you do?
Before this, I did briefly medicine. In details, many things in medicine. That's what I did.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to talk about your master or?
Oh, so you mean before like residency? So yes, I first I came in 2018, and I was doing masters in molecular biology, and I worked in a lab, basically in basic science, leaving behind 4 years of bedside, to 2 years of bench side, which is the exact opposite. It's all, I see them as like one spectrum, where there are two poles, and physicians deal with one pole, that is the bedside, and then there are scientists that deal on the bench side, and there is often a disconnection, even though there should be a language, because medicine is based on science, and science, you do that for an ultimate goal, that you can do something that benefit living and humans or other living subjects on this planet. So the idea that I had a long time ago is I want to speak both languages and be fluent in both. um, where MD stands for Doctor of Medicine and MD stands for Mouse Doctor. So that's the plan eventually. So doing the masters was part of this.
Nice. I think it's really good to have like a good handle on both, because I think like if you're just a clinician, you need the basic science. I think it's really crucial.
It's definitely helpful, and like I saw that on one of my patients when I had the idea for treatment from some of the experiments I was working on, and there are many people who do that. I still remember someone gave a talk last year. She is she's a neurologist, specifically dealing with neuromuscular diseases, and she had a family of patients with a specific form of facioscapulohumeral muscular dystrophy, and both parents are carriers. They're both unaffected, but they had two boys with the disease, and the mother kept telling the physician, find a treatment, or let's use this medication, or let's use this chemical. And the physician was like, they were never used in humans. And finally, she said, she kept asking me that I finally decided that I will go with what she say. And she developed a model of the disease on Drosophila, like fruit flies. And the scientists treated the Drosophila embryos who are affected with the disease with this medication, and it worked. And then they translated the experiment to the humans, those two boys, and they are doing well, believe it or not. So the effect is very interesting, and it's not only in like one rare disease, which I even hate saying like rare disease, because I see them every day, and just the idea that this is a rare disease does not mean there should be rare treatment for it. Just because, well, there are many reasons why there aren't many options, but still we can work on that, and working on rare diseases, as in the case which I always bring. It's one of my favorite stories, like two scientists working on familial hypercholesterolemia, which is relatively rare, ended up in use and discovery of statins in 1989. And now millions of people are on statin for primary prevention. So that's the idea of science. It's where everything starts most of the times.
We talked about a lot about language. I wonder, how do you what language do you think? What, like Arabic, English, music?
So
languages, if you speak other languages, I don't
know. I think, well, it depends on the subject. Most of the times I think in English, especially if it's in medicine, and music. I think of that, and sometimes I always have like a state of confusion when I'm very sleepy, where music and medicine become one thing, and I would it just become one part, like one thing, and I use that to think sometimes. It happened a few days ago, actually. I was writing about muscle death and apoptosis and muscles and rhabdomyolysis, and I just like had a block of thoughts, and I was like putting a justification for a clinical case. I just had to pick up the violin, started improvising, and then idea come to mind that it's well, like a connection of the block of thoughts, like so they to increase intercellular calcium, and then this medication or this condition can increase the calcium, and then I got back, looked in the literature, and find something that support that. So I do think musically sometimes more than I should. But to answer it shortly, English most of the time.
Yeah.
How about you?
I think in English now. Like it was, I was talking to Becky the other day, and because I was thinking, especially when I started doing this, like the interviews,
Hmm.
I was like thinking, I was like, should I make it in Arabic or in English? But then I was like thinking, I was like, I think I'm more comfortable in English than
Yeah, I mean, certain topics are just, especially medical, because and this is something I like. Even people who are native English speakers or have their English as their first language, they would ask me like, "Oh, do you think in English, or do you have to translate?" Or and then when I tell them that, especially in medicine, and they ask, "Oh, what in which language did your training was?" Um, and then when I tell them it's in English, some of them will get surprised. I remember one of my colleagues. She's a cardiologist from China, and she did her medical training in China. And she tells me that she often finds it a little bit difficult to uh, like convey some of the medical ideas because all her training was in Chinese, and her practice as well. And she was very surprised to hear like, "Oh, you are from Iraq, but you studied medicine in English." She said like, "Why?" It's like, I never thought of that. Why? I don't know.
yeah,
uh,
it is.
I'm not aware of anything other than that. I know there is literature in other languages, but I think the majority of the literature. I was just reading a paper, and the author was like the author's first language was not English, and then finally in the acknowledgement section, he was thanking someone for translating the manuscript to English, which is something I never think about, and it's definitely I would say a privilege, having English as the language of our training, which helps a lot in writing, and we don't think of like I take it for granted sometimes.
Yeah. So actually, now we talking about this. You practiced more in Iraq before you came. You practiced.
As a matter of fact, I did.
So can you talk about the difference in practicing in Iraq versus practicing in US? Like, what do you?
Uh,
You
the weather, the weather, it was much more hot back home. I
oh
think
no,
that's.
like practicing in like medicine, like
I
practicing.
know, yeah. I was kidding. That's.
Okay. I was like, wait.
I, and I was kidding, but that's also my real answer, because I don't know. Maybe you will hear different people say different things. I So yes, there are differences, but they are not core differences. Um, I was in 2017 was the most restrictive year in my life, but it was the year that made me the clinician who I am today. And the reason is I was practicing medicine without labs, without imaging. I had an EKG, and I had very basic labs. And sometimes I didn't have even the EKG. So that's definitely different. Here, everything is a few clicks away. Um, I wouldn't say everything, but almost everything. I'm still struggling to um, get to everything, and I will talk about this in a minute. It was something I was just working about today. Like I have 3 families with possible genetic condition, and I need to do genetic testing, and that definitely was not available in Iraq, even though we did it. Me and a group of physicians, we were able to do genetic testing on an Iraqi family, and I'm happy to talk about this if you want, and just to give ideas for people or watching, that it's possible. It's possible to do everything.
Actually, I would love to talk.
Uh,
I'm not aware of this, so I would love to talk. Like how
uh,
how
I was here. I was here already, and some of my one of my friends, who was a rotator, which is basically an intern, a first year practicing physician in Iraq, and he had this encounter. He was doing pediatrics, and I, 4 to 5 months of my intern year in Iraq was in pediatrics, and then I did almost 2 years of general practice, where you see pediatric population every day. So I wouldn't say I have experience in that. I do a little, but the thing I was focusing the most about in Iraq is hereditary diseases, because in the scientific literature, you read about genetic diseases as orphan diseases, and they refer to them unofficially the zebras of medicine, coming from the common saying that if you hear the hooves, it's most likely horses, not zebras. But every now and then you see one. And believe it or not, I was just looking at one of the rare diseases organizations. Their official logo is a zebra, which is it's funny, but sad at the same time, because it came from or easy. They call it rare, but what I see really is the scarcity in our awareness and knowledge about it.
sorry for interruption, but I think it's kind of like everything is built about economic way.
Here we go. That's very true.
Yeah, so it's kind of
That's one of the reasons of the scarcity of resources and treatments for these conditions.
there's no incentive to make these drugs, and so that's why you end up with, unless like a big organization, nonprofit, or like someone would do something to push a certain research to one disease. And this is kind of like similar to why it happened the Ice Bucket Challenge, I think, just to raise.
Exactly.
I think they call even the drugs that they use, they call it orphanage drugs for these diseases.
Yes. And most of the, or you would see like off-label uses of pre-existing, already approved medications. It's a difficult situation. But the point is, my interest was from the fact that I had an idea, and or let's call it a hypothesis, and I wasn't able to prove it in Iraq, but it was based on a very strong evidence that I saw people with phenotype of very rare diseases. So that's number one, and that I saw that almost every day. Number two, something I did very simple in the history taking of these patients is I included genetic pedigree in every single encounter. And they often find it a little bit like weird, where I would say, tell me about your grandparents and their lives, and how did they die, and tell me about young people died in your family, and I would get answers or ideas from these, and I have a notebook with pedigrees of patients that I saw, of some of them where I didn't even reach a diagnosis, but some I had like a provisional idea of what's going on. So that's the second the second finding I saw, like phenotype of an index patient, and then a supporting genetic pedigree. And then when I was looking at the literature, there is a website that is very reputable, that I followed a lot. It's called NORD, NORD, National Organization of Rare Diseases, and they do provide like a consensus or estimate of affected population. And I still remember I was in this village with Doctors Without Borders, and I was dealing with a patient, 6-year-old body mass index more than 40, very severe myopia, and polydactyly, extraaxial polydactyly. There are 6 digits on both hands, and there is a 6th toe as well. So, and short stature. So the plan was to monitor this patient for renal failure because the clinical diagnosis is Lawrence-Moon syndrome. And this is very rare. Until I went and I read, Lawrence-Moon is very rare in the Western population, but it affects 1 in 1,000 in Bedouin Kuwaiti population in one study. And I was like, this is just south to Iraq. This is very close. And it kept me thinking, possibly the rate of consanguinity. That's what it's like, they call it in some conditions, genetic bottlenecking, or where there are any factors that leads to close breeding between closer family members that leads to this. That's why we have a lot of these patients in Iraq. So people who work with me know, because I did presentations in Iraq about these. I documented them and I talk a lot about them, especially in Doctors Without Borders, and I did several times like some presentations about such patients. So this colleague of mine was doing his pediatric rotation. He contacted me and sent me some clinical vignette of a patient he saw. The patient was 6 or 7 year old, very cloudy cornea because of recurrent injuries, scarring in the lips, scarring in the tongue, loss of the teeth. So I was telling him, the connection is he has insensitivity to pain. He injured his eyes. So I said, just check pain sensation. He checks the pain sensation. He said he does not feel pain. So I told him that's HSAN, or I call it Hassan, hereditary sensory and autonomic neuropathy. It's one of 5 families of sensory autonomic neuropathy diseases, which is very rare. We lost contact with this patient, and strangely enough, about 2 weeks later, he contacted me again. He said, I have another family with the exact same presentation. I said, now you probably have bias because you saw it once, but let's see. Well, he sent me the clinical data, and it's very suggestive of this syndrome, where there is the index patient is a young female that was affected, and she it's basically like a very severe diabetic neuropathy without diabetes. So you would see foot ulcers and amputations, and she was affected by that. And he was telling me that her cousin was also affected with that. So I said, this is definitely genetic. And when he went and did the pedigree, both of the affected patients' parents are first-degree cousins. So I told him about the website Nord, and sometimes they provide names of experts in the field. So he contacted the expert who discovered the syndrome, who is a German clinician scientist named Ingo Kurt. He said, I have this clinical manifestation, which is very similar to your first published paper in 2009 of Saudi family. It's always from the Middle East because of consanguinity. He said, well, I have a lab and I will be happily do whole genome or whole exome sequencing for free for the affected patient and her brother who is unaffected. So we discovered that the younger brother is carrying is a carrier of both, like homozygous state of the disease, but does not have the manifestations yet. So what we were able to do is providing diagnosis to an unaffected asymptomatic patient yet. Basically, you do counseling just as with diabetes neuropathy. Check the feet every day. Put all your money in a very comfortable, good pair of shoes, and watch your feet every day to prevent any injuries and ulcers. Because that's that's about it. It's, the science is still lagging on how to reverse the effects of this specific mutation. But the point is, both patients were in Iraq, both patients were seen in a relatively low resource hospital, but we were able to do sequencing for free if you contact the right people.
Is that in, how did they send the samples?
So my colleague collected blood and send it. You can send biological samples in certain mails, like dried blood, I think.
Oh, interesting.
And we got the results in, was it January this year? I think, no, last year. But it took like 4 or 5 months.
So we talking about the difference in practice.
So that's one difference. But the point is, you can still do it even in Iraq.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree that that's really good that you shared that with us. And I was thinking, so what's next? Like, is there genetic counseling? How you gonna follow up? How does this patient, the asymptomatic person, is he gonna go back and marry one of his cousins again?
So I used to. That's a very, very interesting question. It's exactly what's next. And as someone who likes to tell story, I will answer that with a short story. And so there was, I was in another village, and I was seeing patients, and there was me and there was a female doctor, and we usually split the patients evenly, but sometimes certain female population would prefer to be seen by a female physician. That's why there were always like a male and a female physician. So I noticed that I was seeing someone with epilepsy and had dysmorphic facial features, and I noticed that there was someone else that looked like him. I was going to the female physician, so I was like, I have to see them both, because I knew there was something. I went and I asked her after she finished examination. I said, "Can I take a look at them both?" It turns out that they were brothers, and just like one was with me and his father, and the younger one was with his mother going to the female physician. So I saw them both. I noticed that they were very florid clinical manifestations, but there was a common denominator of developmental delay and seizure disorder. So I decided to pay them a visit. I went to their house, and I told the father to bring everyone who was affected with the condition, and I ended up seeing 8 patients. And I did a very extensive pedigree, and most of them were coming from consanguineous parents. So it was a very complicated case. It took a lot. We had something in Doctors Without Borders called telemedicine, where you consult like experts in the field, and I ended up like talking with pediatricians and geneticists, and no one had like an idea what was that, basically, because it's very difficult to tell without genetic testing, and that I wasn't able to do genetic testing. It's still on my mind, and I would say we have a plan for that still, but it's not executed yet. But I ended up telling the father that, hey, honestly, I don't know what is this, but I know it's autosomal recessive, and I explained what autosomal recessive is, and I told him, this is the family. I showed them the pedigree, and people understand them very easily when you tell them this is you, and that's your wife, and these are your kids, this is your parents, and they see the skipping of generations, and they see how it's always there and across like 4 generations. So I was telling him, the only thing I know for sure is, as much as possible, don't let your children marry any relatives, because whatever this is, there is a very high chance that your grandkids will get it. And he told me, I kind of knew this, and his I wouldn't say I was surprised, but you know, uh, they had like 8 affected members, and they did the math. It's sometimes it does not require an MD to figure this out. And his older son is like, he was the first one in the family marrying not his cousin, having basically unaffected kids. But what I did is I just reinforced this information for his other unaffected children.
Yeah, so talking about the difference also, the supporting cast, like the supporting cast in medicine, like I don't know, I
Mm-hmm.
think cast because it's not only physician. In Iraq, you think like,
Oh yeah, definitely. I still remember when I had the idea of combining both cases and looking at it as like two common denominators, and I had like some differential diagnosis initially. Um, I remember contacting my supervisor and telling him I need to pay them a visit, and this is like, I'm not going alone. They provided a car, driver, and staff with me, um, and I think it was worth it, because the 2 patients that I saw were just the tip of the iceberg when I saw others affected as well, including, strangely enough, someone with the George syndrome phenotype, which was it threw my hypothesis of, I thought it's X-linked, so because that was a female, so which just made it even more difficult to diagnose, because now it's when you see an X-linked pattern, you have like a limited number of diseases, and then you see an affected female, and you're like, okay, this is like one of hundreds of conditions. I cannot do this clinically, but still, you do what you can with limited resources. You do the counseling that you can, and hope for the best.
yeah, yeah. I mean, here, like you have a lot of nursing assistants, as like nurses that support you, genetic counseling staff, social workers. This is all helping you in US versus in Iraq.
Definitely,
Probably
that is something I'm very grateful for.
just you and a nurse, and maybe 1 or 2 nurses. That's it for a whole.
Mm-hmm. It's it's the resources, basically. That's the main difference between here and back home. Abundance of a cornucopia of resources that basically serves you until you reach an answer, and you are able to do well with the patient, and provide them with what they deserve.
I'm gonna go back in history. Like, I just want to know
Okay,
how did you like why medicine like in the first place?
why medicine? It's this reminds me of um, flashbacks to residency interviews. Why medicine? And I always don't know the answer for the question. I mean, it's the answer. Why not medicine?
No.
I think it's an obsession. I'm a very obsessive person, and I was obsessed like with the anatomy and the physiology of the human body since the age of 6. And
How did that come about?
my mom, I still remember one day she told her that I wanted to read a story, and she said, I have something else in return. There's this book that shows the digestive system, uh, like the esophagus and the stomach and the liver and the intestines. And I was like, this is like oddly interesting. And like for some reason, I was just, I kept drawing these figures of the GIT, and there were also like figures of the brain, and I wanted to know more about them. It started as a curiosity. It started as something I wanted, And then by the age of 17, it becomes something that I needed when I was diagnosed with diabetes. Because I was like, oh, now I need to manage myself, because now I'm a firm believer of empowering patients with people with diabetes. Some of us don't like the word patients. Empowering them to do some of the judgments on daily basis. So medicine was always something I wanted, but when I realized that I have to replace one of my organs, it understanding physiology and metabolism, biochemistry becomes something that I need on a daily basis. And then this becomes a passion of me wanting to deliver what I've learned so far to other people who are affected with the same condition. So it's difficult to see myself doing anything else. Maybe music.
But diabetes, I don't know. I don't know why, but I mean, I'm biased. I have bias now, recalling bias, but because of the encounter that I had when I was in school, one of my best friend who sit next to me in elementary school and then moving on to the middle school, yeah, he was diabetic, and I just noticed that, like, and then I met many kids with diabetes. Like, I always like noticed that they are like very educated because they need to know. Like, it's kind of like you be more independent and responsible at early age compared to your peers. It's like because you have extra burden and extra responsibility to control your blood sugar. So I was like always fascinated by him. Like, he was so educated, and he was like my best friend. I was like, why you're so educated? That's my recall bias about children with diabetes.
I feel very happy actually when I hear that, because ideally, well, in ideal world, no kid should worry about their metabolism, but we don't live in such world, and some will have to care about that. But in a possibly ideal world, those who have to should be very educated, and they should know more about their bodies than their physician does, because I always tell my patients, you are the one who is living with your body 24/7, and for 4 weeks a month, 12 months a year for the rest of your life. And I see you for 20 minutes every 6 weeks or every 3 months. So you do the math and you will know who know your body more. So you should know, and because this is how I feel about myself. Like I remember meeting some clinicians who, on the other side of the table, as rated myself, and some of them would like carry the idea of empowering someone with diabetes into making their own decisions, and some would be very strict into applying their own rules. And I disagree with the latter. One of the most famous researchers in diabetes, called Jocelyn, and now the Jocelyn Center is named after him, and one of the centers affiliated with Harvard. He is the first one who came with the idea of empowering people with diabetes into making their own decisions. So it's a necessity, and unfortunately, not all follow that. So we try our best to spread this notion.
Yeah, it's really a lot of pressure on at early age. Like, it's a huge responsibility, and the scary part about diabetes, because like you really don't see the consequences right away. It's like it's more like coming in the future if you don't control it now. So that's
the scarier part about this, I think, is, well, if you do your homework, things should be fine for a long period of time. But what scares me the most is this fact that it's most of the times, I wouldn't say asymptomatic, but it's not painful. Okay, we respond to pain, possibly the strongest among every sensation, but it's not painful, so people would label it as silent, or except on certain extremes, such as like with ketosis. But this, I think it's one of the causes why some patients are not very compliant, and they would end up with complications, because it was basically not harmless, well, seemingly harmless in the beginning. And sometimes you have to like deal with numbers rather than what you feel, and eventually every one of us learn to actually attribute something that we feel to every single number, and you know if you're high or low even without looking at the number. And I love like asking patients, what would you feel with this number? What would you feel? Because it's very subjective and everyone has different answer, but it's always it's interpersonally different, but it's consistent with everyone, almost consistent. Like you can, they know where they are.
Oh.
We know where they are. And back to your point about being very educated at a young age, one of my colleagues, he's an attending in the hospital I'm training at. He was telling me, oh, there was this patient with diabetes who just scares me. He's a young kid who knows all about his pump and continues, because he's like, I know very little about it because it's not my area of experience. So when he comes, you should talk to them.
Yeah, actually, I remember when we did like rounds in the children's hospital in Iraq. I was like so happy when I see I mean, I'm so sad they have diabetes, but I was so happy like the level of education. Like they were so educated, they knew more about diabetes than me. Myself, I was studying medicine.
I always say that's totally fine. Don't feel bad about it, because you're not living with this every day. We have to. So it's not something to feel bad about. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
And it's always the case with every disease. Like I see people with other conditions who are more aware of their own condition, and they know more about it. Like recently I was going in depth into the American community of patients with homocystinuria, which there are very few of them, but they are very knowledgeable, and they know more about biochemistry than I do, because they have to, again. And I understand that, like, from point of view of someone with a different metabolic issue, I totally understand that, and I learn from them. Like I watch, they have, and guess what? I knew about this from the same website, Nord. So I was able to go to their website. It's called HCU Network America. And they have like patients' testimonies and parents' testimonies. And I learned about the condition from the affected population more than, and their words, sometimes more than like textbooks and well, literature is always on cutting edge. But just hearing the words always stick on my mind, like their own words.
Yeah. Who introduced you? I'm going to switch gears a little bit. I don't want to change. I want to talk about music, because I want to know more about your style of music. Like what, but first I want to know like who introduced you to music first? Because music is not a traditional thing. Like for a kid in Iraq,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe I'm wrong, but like it's not.
It's not. I agree. That's I agree. Actually, it's not a traditional thing. It was a coincidence.
I want to know who introduced you to the music, and what was the first instrument that you picked up?
So my younger sister got for her birthday a keyboard. I was 10. And a keyboard basically is like a mini piano. It's not really piano. It's very primitive, but small. So she got it for her birthday, and she played a little bit with it, and was not very interested in it, and I was not very interested in it in the first place. And a few months later, for some reason, I was fascinated with a piece of music. What was the name of it? It's Austrias. I think the piece of music is called Austrias by a composer called Albanese. And I just wanted to play this piece of music on any instrument, and all what was available was this small keyboard, and I was able to do that. So that was a start. I was 10, and then also my sister wanted the guitar 3 or 4 years later.
Is she older?
She's a younger sister.
And you didn't get any?
Yeah, she is more opinionated and particular than me. So she wants something, she gets it. I was like, whatever. But I'm curious. So she got the guitar, and I remember asking a very simple question. I said, there are 7 notes in music, and the guitar has 6 strings. Why is that? Because I thought like every string would carry a note, which now I know very few instruments has that, like a harp or an Arabic qanun have this tuning system. So then I realized that you have to use the left hand, and there are like fingerboard and frets, and the idea is changing the length of the string. And I was interested in the like physics of the sound of it. And I kept experimenting with it until I started to play. And so it was a fascination of the physics of sound and what was available around me. And then I realized also that there is a limitation for the guitar, because we speak in a continuous, or like a continuum of frequencies, and the guitar has a discrete edges at which you can change the frequencies. So I wanted an instrument that has a continuum of frequencies, just like our voices, that you can go up and then down, sliding down. So I got the oud, which is the Arabic instrument. It's an Arabic version of a string instrument that is held like a guitar, fretless one. And then the same interest in the physics of sound. The wave length and shape of the oud is a staccato. It's cut. So I want something more continuous. That will be either a bowed instrument or a wind instrument. And since I don't have a very lengthy breath, I went for a violin. And so then came the violin. Then I came here, and one of the happiest days was when I finally received my violin again. My dad shipped it from Iraq to here, and she arrived safely.
What's her name?
I don't know.
You didn't give it a name?
No. So when it comes to music, I don't think of names. I try to make it as abstract as possible.
Can you play something? Before you play, who's better, you or your sister?
She plays the guitar better. She does not play the violin. So we used to play together. Like we were a good team. She is accompanying me on the guitar, and I would be playing the oud or the violin. And we used to improvise a lot. And then one time, and I'm always against the idea of recording, because I just like to keep it. I don't know. There's something when it has a name in medicine. Is it Hawthorne effect? When you observe people, they act differently when they know that they are being observed. I feel the same when you're being recorded. So I was always against recording any of the sessions, but my mom did record some of them. And when I came here, she sent me some of the recording, and I was like, who was playing this music that I've never heard before? She said, that's you. And I transcribed some of them and they become pieces. Like, and I would say, I kind of wrote it, but it was improvised and I don't remember it.
Yeah, I remember this in psychology. Like you, sometimes it depends on the level of the stress. There's like certain level of stress to make you perform better. I think that's maybe what you're talking about. Like the
It's not the idea of level of stress. It's, I don't know, it's something subconscious that I never think of it. But whenever there's a camera on,
yeah.
I don't like the music. I don't like the way I perform, and I just um.
Yeah, I remember there's like a phenomena in
I
psychology.
think Hawthorne. I have to Google this
I have
now.
to look it up, but it's fine. We can do it later.
Hawthorne effect: the alteration of behavior of the subjects of study due to their awareness of being observed. Okay, so now actually I'm under the Hawthorne effect because I can see the recording light on. Let's see.
You want me to stop it?
What?
You want me to stop it and then I will enjoy it? And
No, that's fine. That's fine. That's I have to deal with it.
wow, that was really
Thank you.
good. I'm your audience. I'm the only audience right now. Wow.
The other end of the Hawthorne effect.
No, that's really good. Like I always like
Thank you.
I play music, but I don't. I try to play like to learn piano, but I like took a couple lessons, but then I just like I'm not. I need to put more time to learn. Becky played saxophone and she played piano.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, she was like I don't know what they call them. The person who like who controlled the band, the musical
Like a maestro or conductor?
I think so. I don't,
Hmm.
she's a drum major, I think. I don't know. I'm not familiar with the names, but yeah, she's good. I like when she plays. Sometimes I study and she plays piano. It's just like so. I like music in the background, especially like jazz music. I usually have
Mm-hmm.
music in the background, and that's how I study. But she played like I like when she played piano and I study. I always want her to play while I study. It's just like very soothing.
It's very soothing.
Yeah,
Um,
I love when she does it. She doesn't do it
uh,
all.
it's I wouldn't say the same for me. It's like I can never study with music because if there's I cannot do like background music. If there's music, I am very focused, like on the notes, on the chord progressions, on the instrumentation, on the texture, and like the nitty-gritty details of the music.
Yeah.
So I unfortunately am unable to enjoy it as background. But the idea of background music has been there for decades. It was first started by a very bizarre schizotypal French composer named Eric Satie, one of the most like weirdest composers with very strange habits. He used to play music and he would be offended if people applaud him. He was like, "You shouldn't pay attention. I am doing background furniture." He called furniture music.
Huh.
Um, yeah, it's very interesting.
What do you think of
His music is interesting as well. He chooses very interesting names like the desiccated embryos and something like that. It's yeah, very weird.
That's weird.
Yeah,
Huh. Interesting. What do you think of jazz music?
I love jazz. Unfortunately, I am not fluent in this language, but it's one of the languages that I like to listen to. Mm,
Nice.
I always have like one or two like current favorite jazz composers. Um, I'm not very much into like more modern. I don't know what would you call it, like experimental, or like more of old jazz. Like they call them like jazz standards. Um, I was listening to Dave Brubeck recently. He has very interesting melodic jazz. So yeah, I love it. How
So,
about you?
like jazz?
What yeah, what's like your favorite genre of music?
I actually I listen to almost everything except metal. I just don't like metal music and like hard rock. No, I don't do it. I
Mhm.
think the first like thing, the first genre that I started listening to back in when I was in Iraq was country music because it was kind of like easy to like
It
recognize
is, yeah.
word you learn because we are just learning English, so it's kind of like easy. But then you get used to it, and then you move on to pop music, and then like now I listen to rock, like I listen to like soft rock, not and I really like listen to any good music. I don't have like specific genre, but for studying only, I can do only smooth jazz in the background. I it's just like for some reason it's just click with me. Like I can like I love to do it, and then I do sessions. And it's just like I don't know. It's just worked for me, I guess.
And there are many like long tracks on YouTube, like 3 hours, 4 hours of jazz. I know that because sometimes when I like get back from hospital very tired, that's what I listen to during my commute.
That's
It can be very very soothing.
that's actually what I do when I study. And actually, I'm planning to do it at one point, maybe like next year. I would do like I don't know if you've seen this like study with me videos.
And not really. What is
Yeah,
that?
basically you just like study and you have like the music and you just like you join someone like virtually. You study with them. It's kind of
Hmm.
so I want to try it at one point. Uh, I don't know. I kind of like I do it a lot. Like I that's when I study. I put someone to study with me, and then that's how I study. But it's kind of cool if I do it, maybe. I don't know.
What year you are at in your studying, if I may ask?
I'm still first year now, so it started like
So you will have a lot to experiment with different styles of studying, I assume.
yeah. It's kind of I have like some like I mean some of the material that we are covering right now. It's kind of like I have like an idea about what's going on because I already studied medicine. There are certain stuff regarding dentistry that I'm not aware of, like dental anatomy, like the anatomy of the tooth. I didn't know that each tooth has so much anatomy. It was shocking to me. We were like, oh, just like 32, and that's it. That's what we learned in medicine. But it's actually each tooth you have to know all the details.
That's a lot.
Yeah, my favorite part is like the practical side, like the clinic, like the things, because I'm like, I do art, like hyper realistic art, like drawing, sketching. So
Hmm.
like I'm really good with my hands. So that's my favorite part. And that's why I feel like I'm in the right place, because like when I do it, when I go to the clinic, it feels like therapeutic to me. Like it's just like I can stay there for hours for some reason. Uh, yeah, it's kind of like all hand, and I love it. Like the eye hand coordination is coming easy to me. So it's been great like so far. Even like I
That's
thought,
nice. And,
even like
mhm.
it's gonna be difficult, like because in dentistry you kind of like you have to use the mirror, and then that's how you use the tools. So it's kind of reverse in reverse. I thought this part's gonna be really hard, but I don't know, for some reason it came easy to me. I don't know why. But
So you get to the practical side from the first year.
yeah, that's is actually one of the good things about Iowa here program. They have like
That's interesting.
they have really good like curriculum. The curriculum is like one of the best in the nation. So if you get into like the practical stuff really early, so we are supposed to see our first patient next semester. So it's kind of like the first year. But I don't know,
Hmm.
with the COVID situation, I'm not sure how that's gonna work. I know like a sealant, we're gonna do sealant practice on like early next semester. So I don't know how that's gonna go with the COVID situation, um, because we kind of like the first year it's kind of like you are not essential, I guess. We are not very essential, but I know that third year and the fourth year student are seeing their patients. So um,
So how many years is the dentistry program? 4.
programs 4 years. Uh, yeah, I mean, I don't know, many people might not know, but because like here in US, the health science programs are a graduate college, so you need undergrad, and then you apply to grad.
Mhm.
So it's a
Sorry, just have to.
yeah. Are you looking for something?
Just have to. No, that's fine. Or something.
Yeah. So how do you like New York so far?
I love New York. I think I got used to the living here. It's convenient for someone who is, well, I'll admit it, lazy like me. Like, oh, that's the other. You know what? I think so. I'm using now like this mic, which is taking the portal of the charging, and I'm running low on the battery, so I'll have to switch. I think the audio quality will change. That'd be fine.
I think should be fine.
Okay, let's give that a try.
Is that a laptop or a phone?
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I don't know if that's like a big difference or not. It's a laptop, but I was using the mic that I use when I record sometimes. Uh, but the thing is that it occupies the same like entry portal for the charging, and
Yeah,
it's
that
running low on that.
sounds good to me. Like
Okay,
I can hear it. It's good.
great. Okay, well, back to life in New York. It's very convenient. Everything you need is around the corner. Um, I think if I live here, I'll never have to drive, which is a blessing. I use the subway, even though people here complain about it. Well, it's convenient. It has its ups and downs, but I don't have to deal with the misery of driving. That's one thing for sure.
Yeah. Huh. And with the COVID situation, did that change your mind?
Uh, about New York in general or the train?
New York.
New
Oh,
York? No. Well, the answer is no for both.
really?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of COVID, yes, it was the epicenter at the beginning, but uh, I kind of like you would expect it naturally to be a matter of time where other parts of the country would follow because it was basically spreading like from one place to another. And it was like the highest numbers for several months. Now it's like we are number 5. Um, we're still like the numbers are going up, but you do your best, and the rest is for uh, the triad of agent, host, and environment.
Yeah. Oh,
That's this will decide whether you will get it or not, and if you get it, how bad will it be?
yeah. What's your favorite place like to go? Like your favorite place in New York?
I live in my favorite place, so I don't have to go. It's Greenwich Village. That's definitely my favorite place. That it's very neighborhoody, small uh, village. They call it village, which I think it's a cute name. Uh, uh, it's old. Like some of the streets have like cobblestones, and the architecture is nice. It's I I chose to live here in the beginning because it's very close to the campus of NYU.
Mhm.
So I was like 2 blocks from the main campus. Um, then I started working in the lab in NYU Langone, which is in Midtown. But I didn't move, like I stayed in the same place. And now I work in Brooklyn and I still live in the same place. I don't mind the commute. So the thing is, I study in my commute. Like I read JAMA and NEJM every week, and I try to finish like both of them in the train. So I always joke, I say, um, I learned more on the trains of New York than what I learned previously in my life.
Nice.
That's the only way to make it count, because most of the time the connection underground is terrible. I don't know if it's my phone or it's just like the network I use. Uh, so music is not always an option.
Mm,
Uh, Having a hardcover journal will suffice the 40 minutes of commute.
yeah. So if someone want to visit New York, is there a place to you recommend? Yeah, I can
Uh,
go to. And do you have like a favorite place to eat?
Many. Uh, the first place I recommend to go to, well, they'll definitely see many options online, but one place that I don't know, not so many people are aware of is a place called the High Line. Is it the High Line? I think it's the High Line. Yeah, High Line. Yeah, the High Line. It's it is on the west side of Lower Manhattan, um, just near the Hudson River. It was an old um, like rail for a train, and it was non-functioning for years. And then they finally make it this beautiful walking lane with a lot of plants and small trees, and it has a view for the Hudson River. So at sunset, it's a very lovely place to be. I every time like I get a visitor for the city, I like to introduce them to the high line. Watching the sunset across the Hudson, like sun setting behind Jersey City, is a very lovely view. Um, there's a nice bike lane there, since I know you like biking. If you will visit, they have I think 3 city bike lanes, and we'll definitely bike there. That's I remember. So this place like has a very special a value for me. I remember like at times where the numbers were very high of COVID, like in May, and like the city was in a state of emergency, and there we were in a lockdown. There's literally nothing to do. I used to spend like time almost every day just going there. And people are very socially distant because they are either running or on the bikes or just sitting, by the river until you get chased by seagulls or what do you call it, like geese or whatever, ducks. But it's very nice.
Yeah. I mean,
Favorite restaurants. That's difficult because this keeps changing.
yeah, I mean, the city.
It depends on what do you want to eat. That's I would say.
Yeah. So what kind of cuisines do you like the most? Do you still have like your favorite cuisines, Mediterranean cuisines?
I do like Mediterranean cuisine. Mediterranean, American, mostly. So American cuisine is a guilty pleasure. Let's admit it. I would say it's my favorite, but I try not to overdo it because we have to practice what we preach.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And so, well, yeah, there is a very nice burger place. It's very very American, lovely juicy piece of like the pate and everything. And their truffle fries is so nice. It's on McDougal Street, also in the village. What was it called? I forgot what's called. I have a better spatial memory than memory for names, almost anomic. Friendsburger, I think, or something like that. For Mediterranean, there are also many options. It depends on. Today I tried someplace which is a chain. I honestly don't know the name of it, but it was good. Like and the portion size was good. Like some quinoa and a fish. I would say if I wouldn't eat meat, I would be a pescatarian. I eat a lot of fish. And recently I realized that I practice in the area I practice in Brooklyn has a lot of, most of the people living there are originating from the Caribbean. So one of the icebreakers for my patients is I ask them about their favorite food. So they tell me where they came from originally and what they eat, and also ask them for like name of restaurants that they suggest. And then I realized that one of the chefs in the cafeteria was also from one of the countries in the Caribbean, and they cook this amazing dish with codfish. They cook it only on Saturday. So I always despised being like on call on Saturday, but this dish changed my mind. Now I prefer my calls on Saturday actually, because that's the only way I'll have this lovely dish. So
There are Cajun spices, like one of the,
mm-hmm.
I went to Louisiana, New Orleans. and it's like they had like this spices. Like it's if you go to New Orleans, of course you're gonna get the spices. Like they have so if you go to a stores, they have a lot of spices. Like I've never seen and salt. So I bought this Cajun sauce. It's kind of look really and
Cajun, I know it. Cajun is one of the new flavors I encountered in New York. I'm sure it's the same for you because it's not something that tasted like anything in Iraq.
I was in
Cajun with the fries. Cajun with the fries. That's a good combination.
I wasn't sure if I'm gonna like it or not, so I bought a like small bottle. But then
Oh, it's really good. It's good.
and then I came here and I used it. I was like, I ran out within like 2 weeks. I couldn't use it. It was super spicy, but then it's just so good.
But the thing I didn't know that Cajun is a sauce because they sprinkle it like a powder here over the fries.
Yeah, but they make it. You can get it a powder, and you also
Oh, that's interesting.
like a sauce, like it's already made. Like you just put it on your meat or whatever you want. It was so good. I love it. I'm gonna go back. I mean, I think I can order online, but I will. It's kind of cool. I would recommend you go to New Orleans. New Orleans, I think you will like it. It's very different than anywhere in US. Like it's very different. Like especially if you like old. We talked about this, like the architecture before we started talking. We talked about architecture. New Orleans is a very old like city vibe. The if you would love there, like if you go to New Orleans. I don't think I will live there, but it's a very interesting place. It's just too much parking.
Oh,
Yeah, and actually, it's a good place about music. It's a very musical place. Like it's all about music.
very jazzy.
Yep, yeah, that's basically.
There are actually a lot of jazz clubs around where I live. I've never been into one. Some of them are like quite expensive to get into, but walking around is just like there is a background of jazz and riffs and saxophone and jazz trios and jazz bands playing, and sometimes like they have the windows open, so you.
Yeah.
I remember 2 weeks ago, I was walking. I was getting myself a hot dog, and I was walking by one of these restaurants, which / jazz club. So they had like the windows wide open, and there was a band. They were playing music by one of the contemporary jazz composer, which was very. It's called Watermelon Man, like the piece. I'll send it to you. It's one of my favorites. So I had to stop and listen till the end. So that's the cool thing about the city is, especially before COVID, there was always music wherever you go, and sometimes there are websites actually that you can tell where certain musicians will play in which parks, and they are all for free. There are shows that you can go to for free because there are so many community orchestras. One of the first orchestra I played at was a community orchestra, so the shows were free, like the tickets were for free. So there are some websites that track these events previously. So if you have a free time, there's always you can like have a schedule.
Yeah.
To go and see stuff and watch stuff.
So what's your favorite like memory so far in the US?
Favorite memory in New York. Like I don't know why this is like on my list, but now because we just spoke about this, like the day when I received the violin from Iraq, I was very excited, and I remember like seeing the package downstairs and just running upstairs to make sure that it's safe and sound, no pun intended. That was one of the early good memories. There's a memory of I was in Lake Tahoe, which I would love to visit again. Just how blue the lake is, almost connecting with the sky. That was a very lovely memory. That was like from the early days when I first came.
Yeah.
There's a funny memory when I had my first PCR in the lab, and it was successful, and like the band was very crisp. For those doing PCR will know this is always a joy. Because later on I realized, well, in molecular biology you deal with bands most of the times. Like you see a band, and the width of the band and how dense it is will tell everything, and will make or break your case. So I remember when I was working on my thesis, I did one of the experiments so many times. I was trying to prove like certain post-translational modification, and finally I was able to prove it. And I saw this band, and that was like I was running in the lab, and it's possibly that was one of the so I think we are going to happier and happier. Next one, when my first paper was accepted in the BMJ, that was because I couldn't believe it. Like you start low and you go up, and the first one, my collaborator, which I'll never forget his words. He told me that aim high and if you aim high, aim to the moon. If you don't make it, you will end up among the stars. So we decided to submit to the BMJ and one of the BMJ journals, and it was accepted. That was a very happy moment because I woke up. It was summer, and like my schedule was very light, so I woke up in the morning, and I look at the phone and I see the email of the congratulations, the acceptance, and brings us to the next congratulations mail. That was possibly one of which I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's the March 15 when you know you are matched. That's I keep this email. I look back to it.
So talking about the match and the journey of the US.
That's so many single favorite days. So sorry, I couldn't. So that's the 3 favorites and honorable mentions. Okay, let's call it this way.
We have like maybe like a few like couple advices if you want to give to anyone who is going through that, or they want to go through this process. Do you have any advice for
them? Yes. And my advice is not subjective. It's objective. It's based on data and studies, and it shows that one of the, I wouldn't say the single most important, but one of the most important predictors of success is a high degree of conscientiousness. If you are a hard worker, this predicts success. Even if you don't match for the first year, even if you don't match for the second year, even if you never match, if you have high degree of conscientiousness and hardworking, you will make it. You will make it. I have met several Nobel laureates in science, and they always say it's perseverance and hard work in almost a pigeonholed area, very, very focused. You will go places. So don't worry. It's fine if because I wasn't sure that I was gonna get matched in the first place. So always have plans. There are like 26 letters in the alphabet. So if that's plan A, there's B and C. If you go to Arabic, that's 28 letters, even more. So hard work. That's I think that's one of the most important ones. And there are others. One of the most influential pop artists in New York, Andy Warhol. Mm, I think it's Andy Warhol who used to say, it's not what you know, but who you know, which is bad news for me, because I'm not the greatest person in networking. Um, I understand more about the physiology of humans than how to network with them. Uh, yeah, if you can do that, well, good for you.
Well, thank
That will also get you places. So these are the two pieces of advice: hard work, conscientiousness, and networking.
I really agree with you on both. That's a really good advice for on any part of life. I think it's not only USMLE, or you just like, it has to be part of your life in anything you do. I think you have to put the time and effort. I mean, sounds cliche, but it is what it is. It's the reality. It's like
It is, and there are no shortcuts.
and then people just look at the results, but they don't look at the work that preceded.
That's literally the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, and yeah. So I really thank you. Do you have the out by any chance close to you?
I do, but I'm not sure if it's in tune. Let's see. If it's not in tune, please cut this part out.
I mean, there's no pressure. If you don't want to, it's fine. If you don't, if no
I
pressure,
haven't played the wood in a while.
no pressure. If you don't want, and otherwise you can play the violin. I mean, I love it.
It's embarrassingly out of tune.
You can do the violin, maybe one last piece.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
Wow,
Thank you.
that's great. Thank you so much. Thanks for doing this. This is amazing.
Thank you. Thank you
was,
for having me.
that was amazing. I really appreciate you. I mean, I know how busy you are, and you spending your staycation with me. But
Well, thank you. Thank you for being part of it. I really appreciate it.
yeah, I love the story. I loved everything about it, and I really learned a lot about you. It's like For people who don't know, we crossed back in college in Iraq, and that's how we know each other. And I really appreciate that I had the time to talk to you today and doing this. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
And
you very much.
yeah, I think I'm gonna end this.